Hey, it's me, the NPC. So, new Nintendo Direct is coming out soon, most likely going to be a Smash announcement included in that. And while we wait, I figured I'd kill some time by putting together a quick video, just kind of going over the roster and talking about all the possible Echo fighters. Now, a while back, I did a video talking about all the possible clone characters, back before Smash Ultimate was even announced. And so now this video is kind of like the Echo Fighter to that, in that it's the same basic concept, except faster and cheaper. So, first let's talk about the idea of Echo Fighters a little bit. So obviously they have to be a very similar build to the character they're based on. They can't be anything too wildly different. This hasn't been set up as a hard rule, but given that Echo Fighters share the same sort of roster spot as an existing character, it makes sense if Echo Fighters have to be from the same franchise. Again, it's not a hard rule, but it would make a lot of sense. And another thing to consider is the matter of size shifting. Take for example a character like Donkey Kong. One possible Echo could be Donkey Kong Jr., except that character is a lot smaller than Donkey Kong. And, size shifting isn't that hard with polygonal models, but making all of the hitboxes and rigging all of the animations to look just right, can still take a bit of effort depending on what character you're working with. So, in the case of someone like Donkey Kong, the most likely Echo Fighter would have to be Funky Kong, since it's the path of least resistance. There's the least amount of stuff you have to consider, stuff that could potentially go wrong with making the character. So, getting into the actual roster and what Echoes we could expect, starting off with Mario. Mario has all kinds of power-up modes, but, most of those power-ups are being made into items in Smash, so having that as a separate character, especially as an Echo Fighter, wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Something like Metal Mario or Raccoon Mario doesn't really work. And so I think the only really viable option for a Mario Echo would probably be Stanley from Donkey Kong 3, sort of the long-lost Mario cousin. Not a particularly well-known character, and, Mario's not exactly hurting for a new Echo, so wouldn't hold my breath on that, but it's a possibility. So, Donkey Kong we already covered. For Link, alright, so I am going to be having some spoilers for these games throughout this video, so that this is going to be your spoiler warning. Alright, so for Link, one possibility would be Ravio from A Link Between Worlds, since at the end of that game it's revealed Ravio is like the low-rule parallel universe version of Link. So, could make a lot of sense for him to be an Echo Fighter. He would certainly have a distinct look, and it would make a lot of sense for him to have all the same weapons and items and abilities. Samus is already covered. So for Yoshi, one character that could kind of work is Birdo, as Birdo has the fairly the same anatomy as Yoshi, but the problem that stands out is the two moves that Yoshi has that involve his tongue, namely his neutral special and his grab. Obviously, Birdo can't do that. That's not an ability Birdo has ever had. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for Birdo to suddenly do that. So, those two moves, at the very least, would have to be replaced. All of the other egg-based moves I think they could justify because Birdo has been well known for weaponizing eggs. I think that could still fit thematically. It's just the special grab moves that kind of stand out. Maybe for the neutral special, like for Birdo's neutral special, it would have to be the egg shot ability. Like that's Birdo's signature move. You kind of have to have that. And for making that, they could maybe take Samus's basic missile from her side special and maybe just remodel it with an egg, but, that sounds easier said than done. And I don't know what they could do for the grab, so doesn't quite work out. Another possibility is Boshi from Mario RPG, but I really don't see that, just because it's such an obscure one-off character, and the character is most likely owned by Square Enix anyway, and, trying to license that out, it sounds like more trouble than it could ever be worth. Kirby doesn't really have any good options. You could argue Gooey from Dreamland 3, or whatever it is. But here's the problem with Gooey. He does not have any limbs. You might say, oh, but you could just use his tongue instead. That's kind of what the character does. It doesn't quite work that way. You'd still have to re-rig all of the animations, and it basically be the amount of work of making an entirely new character at that point. It just does not add up. So, yeah, Kirby's not getting anything. So, the Star Fox characters are all kind of based on the same archetype. I'm just going to lump them all together since I could see them sort of mixing and matching elements from characters to make a new Star Fox Echo, and which character they would slap the Echo onto is really anyone's guess, so might as well just talk about them all at once. So, the most likely candidate I see would be Slippy, since he is a very iconic character. No matter how much you might hate him or find him annoying, you remember him. You think Star Fox characters, Slippy is always going to be one of the first ones that springs to mind. What they could do with the character, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe make him more of a joke character type of thing. Do they want to make another joke character when they already brought back Pichu? Who knows? The other possibility I could see being somewhat likely is Leon from Star Wolf. Maybe making him a mix of Falco and Wolf could have some potential. There are other members of the Star Fox and Star Wolf team like Peppy and Andrew, Pigma. Maybe, but I don't see them having a very strong chance. And I don't think we need too many characters added, so I'd say those two would probably have the best shot. For Pikachu, the obvious option would be Raichu. They would have to size it up. How much they would have to increase the size is anyone's guess, so maybe it could work out. Maybe it's not too much of a tall order to make the character bigger and not have to worry about re-rigging a lot of the animations and worrying about how well the new hitboxes and hurtboxes work. Another possibility that might be easier to pull off is Pachirisu, who is very similar in size and build to Pikachu, and actually had quite a big jolt in popularity in 2014 when at the Pokemon World Championships someone just came completely out of left field with a Pachirisu in their team. Just took everyone by surprise, And we know that could be on their minds because the Pokken Tournament developers did mention that they knew about that. They knew Pachirisu was really popular and even considered putting Pachirisu on Pokken's roster. So that might be something that the Smash devs might actually end up going with. Luigi, the only real option would be Dr. Luigi, and I don't really see that as being necessary. Even for just kind of like, just for the sake of filling things out, like, Dr. Luigi was just a one off thing, not really all that important, not really begging for representation. Maybe they'll do it just for the sake of it, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that. So with Ness, we already know that Paula and Pooh are being incorporated into his final Smash, and while that's not a hard deconfirm, it does kind of come across as like, we have nothing else for you, we're not putting you on the playable roster, here is your consolation prize. So the only real option after that would be Ninten from Earthbound Beginnings, aka Mother 1. And while it would be kind of cool to just kind of complete the trilogy and have all three main characters from the franchise in the game, Ninten is basically the exact same character design-wise as Ness. I think the brim of the cap is on the opposite side, but other than that, it's literally the same character. And, that's just not gonna work. Imagine an 8-player Smash with 4 Nesses and 4 Nintens and trying to keep track of who is who. That's not gonna be fun for anyone. And you gotta consider stuff like that when designing characters. Same with Captain Falcon, why I've always said Blood Falcon never had a chance. He was always going to just be an alternate color, and he is remaining an alternate color. So who does that leave? That only really leaves Black Shadow as an option, and Black Shadow could work as maybe kind of like an old school melee style Ganondorf, as opposed to how they're changing up his moveset in this game, incorporating the sword a lot more into some of his smash moves. That could be an option. I could see that happening. And, there has been quite a bit of demand for, at the very least, another F-Zero character on the roster. It's the only series that's been around from the beginning, unless you count Yoshi as its own thing, that's never gotten a second rep. And Black Shadow would be a good option for that, as he is pretty much the main antagonist, in a sense. So for Jigglypuff, Wigglytuff would be the obvious option. Again, it's a lot like the Raichu situation, only arguably even worse because Wigglytuff is a lot more oval-shaped, and you've got a lot more to consider with the hurt boxes and how that changes things up. So I think the better option might actually be Clefairy as an echo of Jigglypuff, as they're very similar in size and shape and abilities. It could work out. Clefairy is a decently popular Pokemon, so, I think that'd probably be the best option there. Peach is already covered. Alright, so with Bowser, really the only good option I can see is Dry Bowser. They could maybe play up the skeletal aspect to give him a bit more personality. He was the final boss in one of the new Super Mario Bros. Games, so there is some potential. He's not like a complete obscurity that only shows up in side titles. The new Super Mario Bros. Games are basically mainline Mario games, so it's a possibility. I honestly kind of feel like it might work better as an alternate costume than as a dedicated fighter on the roster, even as an Echo fighter. But, we'll see. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Ice Climbers, I really can't see anything. Like, there's no other characters in their own franchise, and even extending beyond, Maybe Mario and Luigi from the Mario and Luigi RPGs, but even then, like, the character models don't really fit. Even if you went for, like, the baby versions in Partners in Time, it just doesn't really work out. So, I've said before that I don't see the Hyrule Warriors version of Impa making it onto the roster because most likely, yeah, Koei Tecmo owns the rights to at least that version of the character. But if they went for Impa as a Sheik Echo, that could work out since Impa is the one who taught Zelda how to be Sheik. And also, if they end up going for like the Skyward Sword iteration of Impa, we currently don't have a character to represent Skyward Sword on the roster, and they have been putting a focus on representing various games in the Zelda timeline with the Zelda characters, so, that's a possibility. For Zelda, I see a lot of people wanting Hilda as a Zelda clone, Zelda Echo, from Link Between Worlds. I don't really see that happening myself, since the characters are so close in design. It's the most minor details that separate them, and again, you gotta consider the really big, really chaotic matches in Smash, and having the same characters, and there has to be some sort of tell between them. And there's already a very Hilda-looking alternate color in the demo, so I just don't see that working. I would really like to see Toon Zelda join the roster. Toon Zelda was already planned for Brawl, but just got left out because of time constraints, and I would like to see them finally realize that. But again, that would probably be a bit more work than they normally put into for an Echo Fighter, so I don't know if that's going to work out. I'm sorry this is really stammery. I'm just doing this off the cuff just to get it done as soon as possible. Dr. Mario doesn't really have anything. Like, he's basically an Echo already. Why would you echo an Echo? Pichu, all I could see is Pachirisu again if they already give Pikachu Raichu as an Echo and they want to put both of those characters in. Falco I already talked about. Martha's covered. Young Link, Toon Link is basically the same character already. Ganondorf, Demise from Skyward Sword could work. They're basically the same character already. I could see Demise, however I want to pronounce that at this moment in time. I could see him using all the same moves as Ganondorf. I could see that working well. And again, we don't really have a Skyward Sword rep as it stands, so, that's a possibility. Mewtwo, I really don't see anything. Some people have been saying, oh, maybe Gigas as he appears in Mother 1, but problems with that is, like, the sprite in that game is so nondescript. Yeah, it kinda looks like Mewtwo, but it's just such a bland, boring, detailless character, and there's no official artwork giving a more detailed look at how the character is supposed to be, and so I really can't see that ever working out. You're kind of better off just throwing Mewtwo into a match with Ness and just kind of role-playing, honestly. I can't see them ever making a dedicated character. Or maybe just make your own mod and just put the character in on your own with blackjack and hookers. Roy's already covered. Mr. Game & Watch, yeah, so last time I said the big bad wolf from Egg.
Did someone ask for an egg?
And yeah, that's still the only character I can see working for Game & Watch. But the only way I could ever see that happening is if they decide, okay, literally every character on the roster needs their own Echo Fighter. And even then, he would be at the very, very bottom of the barrel. Literally everyone else takes priority first. And once we get everyone else covered, then we can maybe worry about this last guy. But hey, to its credit, it's still a better idea than trying to make Paper Mario a Game & Watch Echo. So for Meta Knight, I was thinking the best option would be Galactonite, but he's already an alternate color, so that's not happening. Dark Meta Knight is, again, just a palette swap, essentially, of Meta Knight. It would be better to have him as just another alternate color. So the only option that leaves would be Morpho Knight, who is the most recent incarnation, debuting in Star Allies. Now, for Echo Fighters, being recent is not so much a death sentence as it would be for newcomers. I don't really expect Rex and Pyra or Springman to get into the roster at this point, just because I feel like the ship had already sailed by the time their designs had been finalized for their own games. I think they'll be the first in line for DLC, but I don't think they're making the main roster. But for an Echo Fighter, they're all about being made quick and easy and at the last minute. So, the fact that Morpho Knight only just debuted earlier this year, that could still mean he could have a shot at Smash if he's just a very simple Meta Knight Echo. Pit's already covered. Zero Suit Samus, really the only option I could see is Jodie Summers from F-Zero, possibly, maybe. But again, that's like branching out into other franchises, which I don't see them doing. Maybe they will, but most likely won't. And for the actual Metroid series, there's really nothing else that would make sense for Zero Suit Samus. Now for Wario, I got an interesting suggestion on my Clones video of having Booster from Super Mario RPG as a Wario Echo. Well, we were still talking clones at that point, but I could still kind of see that. He's the same body type as Wario, and unlike Boshi, he did have a notable role in Mario RPG. He was a major boss fight. He stuck around as comic relief even after his boss fight was finished. He wasn't like a main character, but he was a solid B tier of importance. And you could maybe argue that, it's kind of crossing the line of the same franchise, but, WarioWare is technically a spin-off of Mario. And it would require Geno to be announced as a playable character first and foremost. I could maybe see it, but, I wouldn't really get my hopes high for it, because it is kind of a weird idea, but it's weird enough that I kind of like it. So for Snake, there are 3 possibilities. A lot of people have been saying Raiden, as he appeared in Metal Gear Solid 2, could work. Technically, yes, but I really don't follow the same idea, just because Raiden has really changed into a character all his own over time. He's really been redefined in Metal Gear Solid 4 and Metal Gear Rising, and at this point, I just cannot imagine the character without his katana. Even in Metal Gear Solid 2, he had the katana, only at the very, very end of the game, but still, it just would not be right to have Raiden playable, and he doesn't use the high-frequency blade at all. Now, the two other options I could see working out a lot better. One is Big Boss, who Snake himself is a clone of, so make Big Boss a clone of his clone, get super meta. I'm sure Kojima would love that. And Big Boss is definitely the second most important character in the franchise after Solid Snake himself. You know, he's been the star of, at least, 3 or 4 games, depending on if you count Ground Zeroes. And the final option would be Liquid Snake, who could make a lot of sense as a Solid Snake echo. And what would be super fun is if they have a Metal Gear boss fight in the Spirits mode, and after you beat the Metal Gear, Liquid Snake comes out of the cockpit and you fight him on top of it, just like at the end of Metal Gear Solid. That would be amazing, and I kind of want Liquid Snake in the game just to be able to have that. For Ike, a lot of people have noticed that the Black Knight character that used to appear in the Castle Siege stage is now gone, and perhaps it's a sign that the Black Knight is going to be an Ike echo. And I could certainly see that. You know, they're trained in the same sword style for the most part. You know, Black Knight is one of the more popular villains. He's definitely the most iconic. You know, we do have a lot of Fire Emblem sword users, but Black Knight would still be pretty interesting in that he'd be the first heavy armor, which is something we don't have represented in Smash yet. But that does bring in the one issue, is that they would have to size up the character model a considerable bit, and that might be a bit troublesome, but I think they might be able to make it work. Especially since we did get that Mii Fighter costume in Smash 4. It does seem like they have the Black Knight on the mind, and it could be a pretty cool rep as the one Fire Emblem villain character. So for Pokemon Trainer, I can really only see one possibility, because they're not going to go for an echo of the full team. That there's just no team I can really see being a good fit for the full lineup and still being proper echoes that don't need to really change anything out. So the one option I could see, the final Smash has gone back to being triple finish, which means that Mega Charizard X has nothing to really do right now. And they already went through all the trouble of planning out Charizard as his own separate character for Smash 4, so maybe what they could do is make an Echo Fighter of Mega Charizard X as a standalone version of Charizard. Now, you don't even have to really worry too much about what would his final Smash be, because, it's not going to be the transformation again. You don't have to worry about him transforming into Giga Mega Charizard X, because, they don't really do transformation final Smashes anymore. They're much more streamlined now. So it could just be just a big fireball or something. It could just be the Mario finale just copied over. Whatever they want to do. And I think that has a lot of potential. And, people have gotten used to the idea of Charizard as his own standalone character now, and I think it would be a waste to not reincorporate that alongside having the Pokemon trainer. Now, everybody has been saying that Dixie Kong should be the echo for Diddy Kong. There is a problem. Diddy Kong's rapid jab uses his tail. Dixie Kong flat out does not have a tail. Like, at all. In any incarnation she's ever had, she does not have a tail. She is not a monkey, she is an ape. So, that's a big problem because that means you absolutely have to replace that move with something else, and I don't really see what they could do because there's no other character that quite fits that skeleton quite right. You'd have to re-rig something, and that seems like more trouble than your typical Echo gets. And more than anything else, I think that's going to be the problem with making Dixie an Echo fighter. I don't think it can quite work out. They could recycle a lot of moves, but it only takes one move completely not working that can really hurt things. And you might say, oh, well, what if she uses her hair instead? That's a lot easier said than done. So, I really think that Dixie just flat out can't be an Echo fighter. I think they could maybe go with something more along the lines of Falco or Lucas, like just a more traditional clone character where, you can obviously see they base the moveset off of an existing character, but they made a lot of changes, they added a lot of new moves, and that could be a thing, but who knows if they're even doing that this time around, now that they've got this Echo Fighter idea as an excuse to really churn things out cheap and easy. For Lucas, the Masked Boy could certainly work out. Same physical build, similar abilities, and they could maybe even mix in some sword moves from certain characters, like maybe younger Toon Link, or maybe even Meta Knight if they could. Seeing as the sword is a beam sword that comes from the wrist, it could potentially work out. You don't have to have the sword incorporated into the full move set. You could just have it appear for a few certain specific moves. It's a possibility. Sonic, it's gonna be Shadow. We all know it. We're all thinking it. It's gonna happen. Oh, but what about the Chaos Spear and stuff like that? They're not gonna bother with that stuff. They're not gonna go that far just to put Shadow in the game. In a Sonic dedicated game, sure, they'll make Sonic and Shadow distinct characters, but for Smash, where they have all of these different IPs to juggle, you either get Shadow as a Sonic Echo, or you don't get him at all. Take it or leave it. Only real option for King Dedede would be Bonkers, I guess, and, I'd see him more just being a basic enemy in whatever Spirits ends up being, kind of like he was in Smash Run. I can't see him being a full dedicated character. So for Olimar, we already know that Alf is still just an alternate costume, but for a possible Echo, something they could do is take some of the ideas they had for making Alf an Echo fighter, like they almost did in Smash 4, put those ideas into Louie as an Echo fighter, and then also give Louie alternate costumes based on Charlie and Brittany, and then boom, you have every playable character from the Pikmin series playable in Smash. There you go. So for Lucario, again with a lot of the Pokemon going to the evolutionary chain seems obvious with Riolu. That would have to shrink Lucario's character model down to about half size to work though. Maybe they could make that happen. But an alternative, that's popped up fairly recently. There was an event Pokemon added to Sun and Moon called Zeraora, and it's fairly similar in build to Lucario, and they could probably make that work as an Echo Fighter. Just swap out all of the aura effects for electric ones, and they certainly have plenty of those lying around in the game already. I could see it happening. Rob, there is nothing. Toon Link already talked with Young Link. Wolf already talked about that idea. Villager, it has to be Isabelle. She is such a popular character, and Nintendo knows it. Isabelle is already playable in Mario Kart 8, and that's arguably an even bigger honor than being playable in Smash, because Mario Kart typically doesn't get guest characters. If Isabelle is in that, then it's very clear that Nintendo recognizes her as a fan favorite and is already pushing to make her one of their main mascot characters. So, yeah, I can definitely see her being made into a Villager Echo. The best option for Mega Man would have been Proto Man, but again, he's already in the final Smash, and that really sounds like consolation prize material. Maybe could still happen. I'm not holding my breath. The only really other good option I can see after that is maybe Roll. I'll be honest, I could see myself getting hyped for that, but, I'm a huge Mega Man fan, so I'd get hyped for any Mega Man characters being put in the game. Wii Fit Trainer's got nothing. You could maybe argue for Wii Fit Trainer U, but that's literally just the exact same character with a slightly different face mold. It's not worth it. Rosalina, I was so proud of my idea of possibly making Gardevoir a Rosalina clone that doesn't incorporate the Luma and instead just sort of builds up her base moveset. But I really don't see that happening now, especially not as an Echo Fighter. That would be well above and beyond what Echo Fighters have been seen to do, and I really don't see it happening. Little Mac, unless they go for Hitmonchan, Lil Mac has plenty of rivals who theoretically could be made into Echoes, but they're all a lot taller than him. And again, the whole size shifting matter that I've been talking about might not work out quite well. One alternative they could go to. So the Gigamac Final Smash is now just a flurry of punches in Smash Ultimate, but they should still have the character rig they used for that lying around, and maybe they could take that, flesh it out into a fully fledged character, and slap the character model of one of the rival boxers from the Punch-Out series instead of Gigamac. And one character I could certainly see fitting the bill for that would probably be Bald Bull. He's about the right size, he has a fighting style that would fit well with that, and he is a pretty iconic character for the Punch-Out series, even having crossed over into an arm wrestling arcade game that Nintendo made. So, that's one possibility they could go for. I would certainly like to see any other Punch-Out characters make it in, because I really like the Punch-Out games, but who knows. For Greninja, the only real option would be Frogadier, his pre-evolution. It could maybe be close enough in size that the size shifting wouldn't be a big hurdle to get over. I could maybe see it happening. but who knows if they really want that character in there, like if they really consider it iconic enough. I mean, Frogadier was an assist in Pokken tournaments, so maybe they could go for it. We'll see. Mii Fighters don't need echoes, they are already custom characters. Like, they are their own echoes. Palutena, Viridi, again, path of least resistance, size shifting and all that, so... And also Viridi is already having a cameo on the Reset Bomb Forest, so I don't think she's really in line for being playable. Medusa, on the other hand, same size and build as Palutena, has a very distinct personality, and is also a very iconic character to the franchise as a whole. I think she has a very good shot. Like, if Palutena gets any Echo characters, it will be Medusa, definitely. So for Pac-Man, the obvious solution would be Miss Pac-Man. She does already appear on the Pac-Land stage, sort of in the background. But, that's really not a hard disconfirm, and, Alfonso, he's always on speed dial, he's always there for you when you need him. And Miss Pac-Man is a very iconic character. Namco Bandai has a bit of a weird relationship with the character because she was made under very weird circumstances that could be a video all on their own. You can just look it up. It's a long story. But yeah, I feel like Miss Pac-Man could certainly fit in the roster, but who knows if they'll actually end up going for it. So Robin has 3 possibilities. One is Morgan, who is literally just Robin Jr., Grima, who is literally just Evil Robin, and there was this one leak that was going around that I'm pretty sure has been debunked, but it was suggesting that Soren from Radiant Dawn and Path of Radiance could be a Robin Echo. And out of those 3, Soren actually does sound like a pretty tempting offer. Ike is always going on about fighting for his friends. It would be nice if he had one of his actual friends alongside him in the game. Grima I can't see ever really working because, it's basically the exact same character as Robin. There is no real difference to be found. Morgan could maybe work, but, I'm not so sure Robin is going to be getting any echoes in any fashion. So I wouldn't be holding off on any of those making it anytime soon. For Shulk, there's Malos, who was recently revealed for the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 DLC. He is a Monado user. He could maybe work, but, if he got in before Rex and Pyra and Mithra and whatever, that'd be weird. That'd be very weird. Even with the fact that echoes can be done quick and cheap, you gotta consider other characters you gotta prioritize first. Some things just don't feel right. For Bowser Jr., I really wish they would be able to mix Bowser Jr.'s moveset with Mega Man's moveset, and they could make Dr. Wily, but I really don't see that happening. That sounds well above and beyond what they typically go for with Echo Fighters. Duck Hunt, there is nothing. You want to talk just restricting it to its own franchise? These 2 are literally the entire cast of their own game. There is absolutely no one else they could turn to. And even expanding outside to other franchises, the only thing I could really see ever being a possibility is the Stray Dog and Spiteful Crow from Earthbound, and that's not gonna happen. Like, those are two jobber enemies from the very beginning of the game. Nobody even remembers them. It's not gonna happen. But hey, at least it's a better idea than going to all the trouble of licensing Banjo-Kazooie just to make them a Duck Hunt echo. Don't at me. Alright, so for Ryu, it has to be Ken. You know, granted, Akuma, Dan, and Sakura all kind of are based on the same style as Ryu, but they all have their own unique moves that are very distinct to their playstyle that wouldn't be right to not include in them. Whereas Ken, he was originally just straight up Ryu again. Like, even in the very first version of Street Fighter II, they were still the exact same character, basically. And sure, they've differentiated from each other over the years, but if any character were to be an echo of Ryu, it would have to be Ken. For Cloud, Zack is the obvious option, but I don't know if they'd actually go for it, just because, it would just feel wrong to have Zack in the roster before someone like Sephiroth or something. Even if it's Zack or nothing, it's honestly makes more sense for nothing. And I don't think they can go for something like Squall, like I suggested in the past, or Noctis from Final Fantasy XV, like was suggested to me, because you sort by franchise, and it's not listed as just Final Fantasy in general, it's specifically Final Fantasy VII. So I don't see them reaching out to other games in the Final Fantasy franchise for that. So that really only leaves Zack, and sure, he was the main character of his own game, but I still feel like unless they make Sephiroth a newcomer, I don't really see Zack making it in. For Corrin, there's Kana, who again is literally just Corrin Jr. Maybe not. For Bayonetta, the obvious option would be Jeanne. She is an Umbra Witch just like Bayonetta. She has the same fighting style. There is just one problem, and that is that Bayonetta's Jeanne-inspired alternate color that was in Smash 4, that's already been found in the Ultimate demo, so that hasn't been taken out of the game like the Dark Samus-inspired alternate color that Samus used to have has, that ultimately led to Dark Samus being made a new character. So, of all of the not really a deconfirms, that is definitely the softest one, but it's still not a good sign. Now, for Inkling, obviously there's the Octoling. Now, granted, for any of the newcomers, I feel like if they're going to get an Echo Fighter, they're going to be announced in the same trailer as the base character, like we saw with Simon and Richter. That being said, I think the Inkling could be the one exception to that, because the Inkling just kind of got a weird reveal, where the Inkling was announced for Smash before Smash was announced for Smash. So, there wasn't really room to fit the Octoling in there either way. So, it's possible we might still see Octolings get announced down the line. Any of the newer newcomers, though, I wouldn't be holding your breath on. Like, for Ridley, the only option was Meta Ridley, and that's already an alternate costume. And for K. Rool, well, it's not a good sign when the best possibility that I can come up with is Clump. Granted, he's had a fair few appearances over the years, and he does have the same body type as K. Rool. He is a high-ranking member in the Kremlin military, so it would make sense for him to have access to all the same moves as K. Rool. They could give him the same cannon move, like replace the blunderbuss with the cannon he has in Donkey Kong Country 2. Replace the crown throw with a helmet throw. You can make the counter... Wait a minute. K. Rool's counter, that's one of Clump's moves in Donkey Kong 64. That's where they took it from. Oh my god, do you know what this means? Clump is going to be playable in Smash before Waluigi!